Shalom. Um, the issue I wanted to explore today came out after reading really an amazing book called, that I have it, The Obligated Self, Maternal Subjectivity in Jewish Thought by Mara Benjamin, and it's a book about parenting, about mothering, overlapping terms, but also different. And I read it, I think I started reading it just before the birth of my son and finished it just after. Um, and for me, it kind of really opened up new aspects and new ways of thinking of Judaism and of theology and of God, and of religious systems. It didn't really tell me how to be a parent, and that's not the that's not the point of it. Um, so maybe I can share some of those thoughts here. And of course, I won't do it justice. It's a book worth reading. Um, Basically, what makes it so radical, what makes it different to lots of other books that are inspired by Jewish subjects and bring them into other areas, um, is it takes a metaphor that's kind of very old and very common of the parent-child relationship, um, which has been applied to the God-human relationship, um, really from the Torah itself onwards, but usually in one direction, which is God as the Father. Sometimes there's maternal images as well, but mainly it's God as the Father and Israel or humanity as the child, right? And there's um, lots and lots of prayers and liturgy and texts and midrash and allegories based around that kind of relationship of Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. And the most exciting thing in this book is that she flips around that relationship and looks at a relationship of, say, a mother to a baby as being a model for a relationship towards God. Right? God is a baby. And it's kind of, it's weird at the beginning to think about that, but it's also, once you start thinking about it, it makes more and more sense in that kind of the Jewish model of obligation is being in a covenant that you didn't necessarily choose. It's being born Jewish, right? So being thrown into this Jewishness, whatever that means, and having no way out. Right? You can whatever. You can be baptized. You can not keep any of the laws, but you're still in the covenant. You're still stuck there. Right? And even if you choose to come in, if you convert to Judaism, there's a choice at the beginning, but once you're in, there's no way out. And if you discover something new that you didn't agree to at the beginning, but doesn't matter. You're obliged. All children born also Jewish. They didn't agree to it. They didn't choose it. But you're thrust into this world of obligation where that shapes your being, and there's a relationship there, but you don't necessarily choose the parameters of that relationship. And if we think about the baby, Mara Benjamin has a very nice phrase of the law of the baby, right? I'm quoting here. To be an obligated self was to be the subject to the law of another, the law of the baby. The law cannot be fulfilled in abstract, but only in active, embodied, material actions. soothing, feeding, cleaning, comforting, distracting, smiling, and wiping. The force of the law of another was greater than anything I could have anticipated or to which I could have assented. I had never explicitly agreed to be subject to it, although clearly I had some idea what I was getting into. Nonetheless, I could not agree to the law before I was already subject to it. Right? So also there could be a choice um, to have a child, um, but you didn't choose this child. Right? Maybe this child is born in a different way than you expected. Maybe this child is twins. Maybe this child wants to do things that you didn't want them to want. What can you do? Okay, once you're in there, you're obligated, and then uh, she insists, once in place, I could only violate the law through intention or frustration. I could not cast it off. I transgressed the law as often as I fulfilled it, leaving my crying baby to calm herself when I could not bring myself to respond. Nevertheless, it was clear to me that there was a law, and that the law applied to me by virtue of being my parent's child. Sorry, of being my child's parent. Um, and that's of course we especially Judaism, right? Maybe different religions at different times have different ways of coercion, but in Judaism today, you, there's no punishments, right? If I break Shabbat, it's okay. It's a shame, yeah. Um, I I'm not necessarily um, punished for it. And maybe I'll even have a better life if I don't shake the lulav and blow a shofar and keep Shabbat and all these weird things that I've been thrown into. Um, but even if I don't do it, the law remains, right? And also, if I don't attend to my crying baby, the law that I must attend to the crying baby remains. It's a total system, and again, I won't do justice to this book, but exploring that parent-child relationship, um, again, whether it's an embodied one in terms of mothering, or one where you obligate yourself in the first step, right, as the partner um, of the mother. um, they're both worlds of obligation, which actually have a lot to teach us about relationships with religion and with Judaism and with God. And maybe I'll just finish with some more kind of ideas that can come out of it. One is the idea of love, okay, where there's old questions about lots of commentaries on the Torah that try and understand, what does it mean, love your fellow as yourself? ואהבת לרעך כמוך. What does it mean, ואהבתם את הגר? You shall love the stranger. What does it mean, ואהבת את השם אלוקיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך? You shall love the Lord, with your God, with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And how can love be a commandment? Yeah? And when we look at the perspective of a parent-child, we see actually this commanded love makes a certain amount of sense, right? Or that the terms or the concepts of love and obligation interact in a very complex way, which I think the religious world and the parenting world, they both shed light on each other, of a commanded love which comes out of practice, which comes out of details, which comes out of frustrations. It's not a kind of abstract, clean love out there. It's a very real, everyday love, with an other, right? The other who's not completely other, right? There has to be an object of love which is not you, right? Otherwise, that's narcissism. There's a there's an object of love, but again, like with the baby, that object of love isn't completely separate from you. The There's an intertwinedness and a mutual dependence and a mutual self that makes all those ideas of love much more complex and much more rich. So all I've done is give a little taster of a book. I just think it's a very exciting field to explore, and other people will do it better than me.